go through this, and then we can get to the all-important question of what's for lunch, which is next. First, I want to ask, I know we have a group of states and counties and all different groups. Does anybody have too much money? Okay. I was just checking, because if you did, I would ask you to leave. But anyhow, so I developed a small application. I didn't really develop it, I just implemented it for displaying well data without having a ton of IT support. I looked for a picture in the newspaper, a headline, and I couldn't find it before this, but when this was going on, I think it was the previous governor decided to fire all of the IT staff, and so it didn't go over very well with civil service, but anyhow. Let's see. Where do I aim at? Oh, there we go. Okay, so for this presentation, I'm just going to talk about the history of this program, the website that I wanted to build, the website that I built, and those are not the same. How I built the website, some issues that I came across, some next steps, and also a video demonstration of the website, and that'll be at the end of the presentation. So this was funded by the CDC National Center for Environmental Health. It's commonly called the Private Well Initiative. That phase one was back in 2012 and 2013, where basically what we did was collect all kinds of well databases for private wells only. And it wasn't really collecting the databases, it was basically creating metadata and then sending that metadata onto the CDC. Phase two, which was in 2013 to 2015, we did some well sampling, and then we also built some websites for outreach. I have websites, plural, up there, but it's actually only really one that we did. I did have hopes to do a second one, but that one kind of got scrapped. And then phase three, which is currently going on, is essentially targeted outreach. I'm going to start with the Rhode Island website, and somebody from Rhode Island spoke earlier. I saw this many years ago where essentially you click on a location on the web in the state, and it tells you what you should get your well sampled for. And I thought, that is really great. I'd love to do something like that for Louisiana. And so I started thinking about it, and that's really what I wanted to do. But I wanted to improve on it a little bit. I wanted to add another variable, and that would be depth. So through the state, we have the generalized locations of all the different aquifers that people tap for their wells. This is not to scale by any means, it's just to kind of visualize it. And the depths are not correct in this either. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to have somebody either give me an address or give me a location or click on a map and tell me how deep your well was, and I wanted you to be able to say, okay, if you're here and you're at this depth, you're probably tapping this aquifer. Here is probably what your sample results should be, or what they would be close by. That was my goal. It really didn't happen, unfortunately. I still have plans to maybe do it at some point, but we'll see. Then there was another website that I wanted to do. Somebody from Pennsylvania was here, Penn State University, and they have the drinking water interpretation tool, which is another great one. It's a little bit of an older version of what the New Hampshire one was that was talked about today, which is a really great one. But here you enter your variable, your sample results, and it tells you the results of what they mean, essentially. And I would really want to do something like that for Louisiana. This one essentially got scrapped, unfortunately. I would like to do it in the future, but we'll see. What I'd really like to do is take the New Hampshire data from the EPA and bring that in. But this is the website that I got, and this is the final result. Basically, what it is you can click on a well, you can filter you have multiple filters available for all the data that we have, like the contaminant, the depth of the well, the location of the well, that kind of thing. And it can tell you what was sampled for if it was above the MCL. And I only keep above the MCLs, and I'll get into why But there's too much data in there for me to keep everything below the MCL. It would just completely bog down the website. And let me click this. Whoops. No, it's not showing my little GIF animations. Oh well. Anyhow, let's see. I had a little zoom in of the filter itself, but that's okay. So basically, essentially what I'm going to say is that if you have a tiny bit of GIS experience and access to something called ArcGIS Online, have people heard of that here? Anybody? Okay, we got a few people, ArcGIS Online. You can build this for pretty cheap. And also you probably need a little bit of HTML coding, but not much at all. ArcGIS Online is, according to the company that makes it, Esri, is a complete cloud-based mapping platform. They can share beautiful maps and do everything in between. It is possible only with ArcGIS Online, a scalable and secure software as a service hosted by Esri. I'm not a salesman for it. I don't work for them. I can't give you the exact details of what it does and the white papers for it and all that stuff. But essentially, it's included with your ArcGIS license, with your desktop license. They give you credits for it. And so I'm almost positive, but if you keep all of your data publicly available, then there is no limit of how much it can be shared and that kind of thing. If it's all internally available, then there are limits. I don't remember what the limits are. They have a very complex credit system which magically deducts credits from you for various reasons and stuff like that. So, but I like it. I like the product. So for the website that I built, I had some data. Through phase one, we had data for every every registered private well in Louisiana, at least the locations. We also had sampling information from the USGS, the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality, and the EPA. From my department, the Department of Health, from two parts of it, the Safe Drinking Water Program, and the Louisiana Private Well Initiative Phase 2, which was the previous grant that we had done. And all of that essentially was public data. We also had the generalized aquifer locations from the U.S. Geological Survey as well as the Louisiana Geological Survey. And then we had water system boundaries, and those came from the Safe Drinking Water Program. Have y'all heard of the brain-eating amoeba, I imagine? Some people have heard of that. We had a lot of that in Louisiana, lucky us. And so because of that, we got the water system boundaries mapped pretty well. And that was one benefit of that. So here's another view of the data. As you can see in the upper left-hand corner, the aquifers that have the depth. We also have the water system boundaries. In my case, since I'm dealing with private wells, I'm really interested in the areas that are outside of the water system boundaries. Then we have the non-detect private wells and the detect private wells. The detects meaning they're a sample above an MCL for whatever particular contaminant. Non-detect wells is everything else. And as I said, there was just too many non-detect wells to really include because it will bog down the website entirely. And that's something that you have to keep in mind when you're building a website. People don't like to just see it spinning and spinning and spinning and not doing anything. Let's see if we get the, okay. And in this case, I'm not using the water system boundaries or the non-detect wells. But they are good to have, and we use them for other purposes. In Louisiana, our Department of Natural Resources has a well registry, and in that it tells you, they also include the logs. Well, they have log information, so it tells you where the well is, the depth of the well, what aquifer they believe it taps, and other stuff, the building logs and stuff like that. Now, in some cases, wells will give you a depth, but it won't tell you what aquifer they tap, or it might tell you what aquifer they tap, but not give you a depth. And in some cases, it won't give you anything. In those cases where I don't have an aquifer or I didn't have a depth, I just can't use it. I mean, I have no idea of how deep it is or where it goes. Now, if I had an aquifer, I could kind of assume what depth it was based on what the other wells right in the vicinity were that tapped that same aquifer, or vice versa. If I had a depth, I could look at the wells in that same general area and be able to tell you approximately what aquifer it tapped. So going on to the website itself, every good website has a disclaimer. Even the Rhode Island website has a disclaimer. I looked at that and I saw that, and we did as well. I tried to do this myself, but I could not get it to work for some reason. No matter where you clicked on, it would just let you go to the website and not even bother with it. So this is the one thing that cost money. This cost me $200, not me, but the program. We got our the people that did our website to go ahead and put that in for us, and it works. It's not perfect, but it works. And that was $200. Let's see. All right. So now here you can see the filters. Once you click on the disclaimer, you come in here, and that gives you a little zoom in of the filters, and I'll go over those on the next slide. In Louisiana, we call them parishes, not counties, but it's the same thing. So you can filter for one contaminant by parish, and you have a drop-down list of all the parishes, of all the contaminants. You can select by depth, and I give you a choice of depths. I don't do individual depths, but I give you a range of probably various ranges, about 500 feet. You can also select by parish. So if you just want to know what wells have been above the MCL in your parish, you can do that. You can do the entire state for one contaminant or for all contaminants. And if you do all contaminants, you're just seeing the entire database. Once you do that, you can click on a well and it'll give you some information about it. When the well was sampled, the depth of the well, what it was sampled for that was above the MCL, and it also tells you, it gives you the readings of it. Then it has some useful links. One of them will take you to the EPA's table of regulated drinking water contaminants. And then the NSF certified drinking water treatment units and filters, which somebody mentioned earlier. I'd really like to get something better than that one that would be more specific. So that kind of needs a little bit of work, and I'll deal with that in the future. And also I discovered that NSF is not National Science Foundation. It just stands for NSF International, which is, National Sanitation Foundation. But it's actually not. It just stands for NSF International. It doesn't stand for anything. Yeah. So here's a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff. If you're familiar with GIS or ArcGIS, you've probably heard of a shapefile, and that's kind of the standard file format, at least it used to be. Then they moved on to a personal geodatabase, which was essentially a Microsoft Access file. And then they moved on to something called a file geodatabase. And you can use any of those for ArcGIS Online, but if you want to have a filter that will show you what you can choose, you need to use a file geodatabase. And the reason for that is that very last term, the yellow one which says domains. That is what you need. Domains are something, I guess they're new for this particular, for GIS in general. But what it does is it's in the database itself. It's in the properties of the database, and you have to manually go in and enter what you want your filter values to be. Even though they might be in the database itself, you have to go back there and make a match. So if like at the bottom, I'll have less than 100. So if the value in the database is less than 100, I want my filter to show less than 100 feet. So once you put all that stuff in there, and it is a little bit of time consuming, but it's not too bad. It can't be really automated. Then it'll show up in your filter. Here is the table itself. I really scaled it down so that it wouldn't be too tedious and too much data processing. But basically you have your contaminants, your depth ranges, the parish that it came from, and those are all things that are filtered for in the website itself. The circle in yellow is the aquifer system. I would like to eventually do it by aquifer as well, but I haven't done so because another thing you have to think about is how the website looks when you first look at it. And if I were to include the aquifers in there, it really makes it very confusing. It's like the parishes or the counties, everybody knows what that is. But if you have all these circles in different locations, people will just get confused by that. Some issues and challenges. Well, like I said, the database size. I can't state that enough. I think I have about 500,000 wells sample results and locations of wells, and that would just bog down the entire system. Security. You can embed this in a website, which is what I did for Louisiana. But you can get around this disclaimer if you know what you're doing, or with a little bit of technicality. If you go to, like in this case, you go to Tools, Options, and then you go to find the source of the website. You get a nice little link that shows you where this map is coming from. And if you click on that link, well, then you get to the website without actually going through the disclaimer. So at least the disclaimer's up there, but you can get around it. Privacy. For my map, everything I've done is in the public domain, so I don't have to worry about that. Now, if you do have stuff that is private and that you don't want being shared with the public, I'm not sure if ArcGIS Online is for you. They say it's safe. I'm not positive, and I'm not an expert at it, and I'm not going to put words in Esri's mouth, but they say it's safe. But don't put your data up there and then say, oh, Clay said it was safe. And I can't take responsibility for that. I would definitely talk to them and see what works. A couple other things, some aesthetics and interface issues. I don't like the legend that it comes with, that they have with ArcGIS Online. You can see I still have the aquifers up there. That's all coded in HTML. At some point, I would like to have the aquifers up there, so that's still there. Just some fine print that most people probably won't recognize. All of the expressions must be true. You can't remove that for some reason. I've suggested that Esri remove that, but they won't do it. And then finally, let's see. If there are no results, it won't let you know. So if you use your filters and you filtered everything out, it will just not do anything. And most people will think it's broken. But it's not. It's just not giving you a result. Now, to Esri's credit, they do take feedback. Let's see. Here is a user 7 months ago by the name of Clay Trachtman, who suggested that, at first, they didn't have a drop-down menu. That was not an option. So we got the drop-down menus going. So you can imagine trying to filter something and trying to spell out one of these chemicals to see what was filtered for. So let's see, the drop-down menus was a huge improvement. The ability to change the text, all of the following expressions must be true. The ability to remove the hints entirely. Hints is something in the background. And some kind of acknowledgement from the website that if you run a query and there are no results, it'll tell you that it's still working. And then finally, I wanted a pie chart that if you hovered over the pie, it would tell you what the value was. So on another website that I did, I got the pie charts going, and they let you hover over it, and they gave you a value. So they do take constructive feedback pretty well. Some next steps. I submitted this presentation about a month ago, and since then we've had a meeting. We talked about moving it to our own servers. We're not going to do that. Our current plan is if it's something public, we're just going to leave it on ArcGIS Online mainly because with ArcGIS Online you get the latest, greatest features, which within our own servers you would have to do yourself, and quite honestly, we're not up to it. Additional things, I'd really like to still do something like Rhode Island did, something similar to Penn State. Well, that might be New Hampshire now, trying to bring that in. And maybe a website with the depth added. So those are some ideas. My next thing is a video demonstration, and I really tried to use my most monotone voice I could in this demonstration. It's not on the website yet. I made it specifically for this conference. Let's see if we can get that to work. Let's see. Up. Oh, all right. Welcome to this demonstration of the Louisiana Private Well Initiative web mapping application. To get to the web mapping application, first go to the home page of the Louisiana Private Well Initiative, which is where we are now. On this page, on the right-hand side, you'll see a table of contents. On this table of contents, choose the web mapping application. That will bring you to the application itself. The first thing that you will see is a disclaimer. Once you read over the disclaimer, you must agree to the terms in order to proceed. I will scroll down so that you can see the entire map. The map itself has several standard features. You can zoom in and zoom out by pressing these buttons. You can also pan using the mouse. You can return to the original display by pressing the home button. The application has several standard filters. First, by parish and depth for all contaminants, by parish for one contaminant only, by parish for all contaminants, by state for one contaminant only, and by state for all contaminants. By default, the first map that you see is by state for all contaminants. For this demonstration, let's choose by parish and depth for all contaminants. The parish we will choose is Champaign. All parishes are listed on this drop-down list. For the depth, you have several choices to choose from. In this case, let's choose 100 to 499 feet. Press apply. As you can see, several wells now show up on the map. Let's choose one. In this case, this well was sampled June 3, 1996. It has an approximate well depth of 152 feet. In this case, the contaminant was arsenic. It was measured at 0.02 milligrams per liter, which is double the MCL of a public system at 0.01 milligrams per liter. In addition, you have some helpful links, such as the EPA's table of regulated drinking water contaminants, as well as the National Science Foundation certified drinking water treatment units and water filters. On this link, you can search for filters that have been certified based on contamination. Let's choose another filter. In this case, let's choose by parish, one contaminant only. In this case, let's choose Lafayette Parish. And for the contaminant, let's choose arsenic. Press apply. We now see several wells that have been sampled and had hits for arsenic. In this case, this well was sampled on March 29, 2015, had an approximate well depth of 148 feet, and once again was above the MCL for arsenic of a public system. In this case, where there are several wells that are close together, you will see that it is one of 3 wells. You can press this arrow button, and you will see the other wells that were sampled. Let's choose another filter. In this case, let's stay in the same general location. Let's choose by parish all contaminants, and we'll choose Lafayette Parish again. And press apply. As you can see, there are actually a bunch of additional wells that were above the MCL for various contaminants in Lafayette Parish. In this case, this one was sampled on August 9, 1994, and had a well depth of 570 feet, and had an exceedance of barium. The legend on the right-hand side of the map remains constant. You can see that this application has wells sampled by the Louisiana Department of Health, the United States Geological Survey, and the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality, as well as the Environmental Protection Agency. You also see a listing of aquifers. At this time, the wells cannot be differentiated by aquifers. That is something that we hope to implement in the future. This concludes this demonstration. Thank you for watching. Okay, I hope y'all are still awake after that. Anyhow, that pretty much concludes everything that I've got. I do have some links up here that people have gone over, and it's in your packet as well. And then with that, I can open it up to any questions if people have any.
Any questions? Nicole?
Does ArcGIS allow, I know you were kind of scrolling through each of the results in that demonstration. Can you download to like an Excel file or anything your results from the filters?
In this particular application, you can't, but it is available.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, it's